Hello and welcome to the trade setup. In this video we are looking at CoreWeave. It is time for another update, and today we'll be discussing the reversal that has started to the upside into this area of resistance. But before we get there, I would like to go quickly through the larger time frame for any of you who might be new. And on this chart we have been tracking a pretty simple and basic 1-2 setup, where we have been looking for this correction into the area of support for the wave 2 between the $97 all the way down to the $48.5 level ever since we were somewhere around these levels. Yeah, this is when we posted the first video. We assumed a completion here of the wave 1 and we were looking for the retracement into the area of support. And then after this initial movement down, we were considering a possible bottom, but since the structure to the upside has failed to form a reliable pattern that could have been tracked for continuation in a wave 3, we were heavily inclined to believe that we should expect a reversal back into the area of support, which right now has come to a point that I could actually argue in some counts that it is a full pattern. Yeah, if I would say that this is a WXY pattern, we wouldn't need any additional lows to assume that this pattern is complete, and we could already be on our way into the third wave to the upside. Now, we will discuss other scenarios and relevant levels that need to be broken for a more clear signal that this structure is indeed going to play out. But first, I want to give you now the ideal target for a third wave to the upside if it really is to work out, and that would be at the 138.2% extension of the wave 1, which is around the $700 level. So yeah, it is about a 10x from the lowest point, and right now we already have a decent structure forming in this area. And in the previous video, we were looking still for possible extensions lower within this pattern, and we have managed to push more directly into the area of resistance. And although we haven't managed to break it yet, I am inclined to believe that we cannot reliably track here an internal structure, an internal extension within this structure, as we have already retraced quite largely. This wave 4 would be heavily out of proportions with any of the patterns within this structure, and even if we are to extend lower, I would be probably inclined to believe that it would be within the yellow interpretation most likely. Now, even here, I have a couple of ways I could be tracking this pattern to the downside, but in the end, it would be quite similar, and we would be tracking a very similar area of resistance anyway. Now, what I want to point out in this area, well, now we can remove this area of resistance, but what I want to point out, this structure might have actually formed a reset in this higher low. Yeah, we may have had a small truncation in this area. In the end, it doesn't matter too much, but what I am tracking in this movement to the upside is a possible leading diagonal to be forming, where again we may have bottomed within this wave 2 correction. I am looking for interpretations that could allow a completion of this structure to the downside, and that could allow an initial 5-wave move to the upside in a wave 1, and I would be looking afterwards for an additional area of support for a follow-up wave 2. But for that, again, we need, as always, to form the initial 5-wave structure to the upside. Now, whether I am tracking this leading diagonal from here as a 1, 2, and then this would be the 3rd, 4th, and the 5th to be forming, or this would be the actual bottom and I would be tracking this as a 1, 2, 3, 4th, and the 5th, it would be quite similar. Just wanted to point out for some clarity how I am tracking these areas, these interpretations. And before we get into the exact count and the smaller time frame support, I want to point out that yes, from this large time frame perspective, this area of resistance is still relevant for the yellow interpretation. And what we could be looking out for, again, as I was mentioning earlier, is a couple of interpretations, but in the end all quite similar. And I would be looking here for resistance at levels between the $79.5 all the way up to the $109.5 level, where if we manage here to break above the 61.8% retracement, it would be a very healthy signal to me that this structure to the downside is very likely not going to extend any lower. And even if we in the end still head lower, still head back into lower prices, well, other more bearish interpretations could work out. A larger correction in the wave 2 could still be in place to playing out on the large time frame, but it wouldn't be a focus, at least not into a direct push to the downside in this area. And we will hopefully already have by that point a more reliable structure from a slightly smaller time frame perspective in this area. Yeah, for example, we form here the initial 1 2 3 4 5, then we look for a wave 2 correction, and then we get an impulse in the wave 3. That would be a healthy sign that this structure may be more reliable to work out with, while at the same time breaking the 61.8% retracement resistance level. Now, with that said, if we were to look here for a potential 1 2 1 2, or yeah, even a 1 2 in this area, and have this as the third wave down, I would have only changed the area of resistance slightly, where in this case we would have already gotten to the 38.2% retracement, and it would be a slightly restricted, a slightly lower 61.8% retracement, but in the end, all quite similar, as I was mentioning. I wouldn't expect necessarily even the proportions of this wave 4 to be any different, and in that case, I want to point out, yeah, it isn't too important to focus on that. Now, from the yellow interpretation perspective, we need to be careful because this structure could actually be complete to the upside in the wave 4, and we need to be watching out for a possible extension to new lows in this area. But I would like to see a break above the area of support that I would be tracking in that case for a signal that this structure is indeed not going to work out. And I'm looking for support in case we have already topped here within this internal wave 3. Actually, we can leave this level, but I would be looking for support here in the wave 4 at the levels between the $83.8 all the way down to the $76 level at the 61.8% retracement, where a break below that level would be a quite worrisome signal to me that this structure to the upside will not end up forming a 5-wave move. Yeah, we should be prepared for our larger, either a direct retracement into a 5th wave to the downside, or a larger leading diagonal to be forming, because yeah, this would not be a 5-wave move to work out still if we fail to hold once again the $76 level. And for now, we can even check if we want some of the extension levels, but as we can clearly see, we have pushed into the 78.6% retracement extension, and this is basically where the trading day stopped, but this is not to say it couldn't have extended any higher. And based on the internal pattern in this area, I have to say though, the pattern looks complete and it doesn't look like it needs any additional highs. I can easily be tracking this as an ABC pattern, where I wouldn't even like to see actually additional highs. I would like to see here the retracement in the wave 4 and then a 5th wave to the upside. And with that said, for now, these are the levels, this is the trade setup. I hope you enjoyed the video, and if you did, don't forget to subscribe and let me know what else you want me to cover, and I'll do my best to do that in the days and weeks ahead. And until then, I hope you have a nice day, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye bye.